Hello, my name is Terry. Today I am going to show you how I reamp guitars here at my home studio. We're going to go through what devices I use, the cables I use, the routing that I use, and we're going to reamp a guitar track that I make up right here today. So it should be pretty fun. Let's get to it. Reamping guitars is something that has been going on for a long time in the music industry. The idea is when you are tracking guitars, whether you're the one tracking the guitar or you have a person in a band tracking a guitar, you want to make them the most comfortable as possible so that they give you the best performance that is possible at that time. So your recording is the easiest to mix and the easiest to edit. Now, when that's going on, a lot of times the guitar tone that a guitar player might like isn't necessarily one that works really well for you to mix. So you will, get their guitar tone where you think they like it, and they will give you feedback on that during the session, and you'll get it to where they feel good when they're playing it, and you will capture a clean signal coming out of their guitar tone that hasn't hit the amplifier, so that later on you can take that clean signal and run it back into the amplifier and change the EQ of the amp, the gain of the amp, the microphone placement, and everything you can possibly imagine. And that track will keep playing over and over and over in different parts depending on what you're looking to do with it. That way you get a very awesome guitar tone, and you get to choose and explore different options that you wouldn't be able to have if you just recorded without running the DI. So to record a DI, which is direct injection, you need to have a DI box. You can go straight into your interface, one of these ports probably, and I have before. It works. It's just, it does have some noise on it. It definitely does. And I mean, it might be negligible, but in the world we're in, where you probably only get that performance from the guitar player once or twice, I just want to make sure that it gets in there perfect and I don't have to call that person back to possibly do that again. Because then you lose the mood, you lose the energy. Having to re-record isn't fun. And regardless of what you might think recording is like, I happen to believe that the first couple takes, if the person has practiced, are usually the best. So we want to keep those and do little edits. The other thing that this does is makes a more usable signal to edit with, and we will get to that. The DI box I'm going to use today is probably the most common DI box that you can find to buy anywhere, and that's why we're going to use it. I got it for $100 at Sweetwater. It is a Radial Pro DI, really simple device. It's got an input. It's got a 15 dB pad that attenuates the signal going in case it's too hot. It's got a ground lift, and on the back it's got a low Z output, and it's got a throughput, and this is what will go to the front of your amplifier. So it'll go in here, out to the amplifier, and then this side will go to your recorder. So that's what we're gonna do. Something to note is that we're gonna have this go into the out and this to the in. The shorter the cables are on these passive devices, the more accurate the signal is going to be. The longer the cable, the more loss on your high end and the more dull the overall sound will be, and you'll have to compensate for that with the EQ in the end. So make sure that it's nice and short. This is about 6 foot. I can't work with less than 6 foot. If I could, I would use 3 feet, but I try to use 6 foot cables. That usually works. If you can fashion a shelf like this or get something going on to where your recorder's right next to the head, Then you can take this. You're just going to want to use a regular guitar cable. And the difference between a regular guitar cable and an instrument cable are this. One of them is unbalanced, or a TS, tip and sleeve. On a tip and sleeve, it means there's only two types of connections wired into that cord, and it will look like this. Very simple looking, and will show you, looking at this, what is unbalanced and what is balanced. This is unbalanced. This is what we want to go from a guitar into the guitar head. What we want to go after we do this, we're going to reamp. We're going to want to run a balanced cable out from here in. That type of a cable is a TRS, or tip, ring, and sleeve. It has 3 connections on it. Thus, it will have 3 different types of levels on this. And you can see, or there's the tip, there's the sleeve, there's the ring. We're just going to use this. We're going to plug this into our guitar. We're going to plug it into the input of our direct box. We're going to have the through of this is going to go into the front of the amplifier. So here we go, and this is a unbalanced cable through. So to look at this, we have the input going into the DI box. We have the through going into the input of the amp, okay? And we have the output going in to the inside of our interface. So now when we record, one side of it's going to go to our amplifier, which we're going to microphone in front of a cab. We're going to capture that, and the other side is going to go before this and capture just what is coming out of the guitar. That way later we can take that and we can run it through our reamp box, and we will be able to reposition all the microphones and re-EQ the guitar amp, or use a totally different amp, or whatever we want to do. So let's get to the next part, and that is tracking some guitar. All right, here we are. We have our session open and ready to record everything. We have our DI, which is the XLR going into our recorder that's before our amp. We have the amp track, which is our mic'd up cabinet in the isolation room. And we have our reamp track, which we're going to use afterwards when we switch over to the reamp box. This is how I'm going to set up this session. You can copy this if you want. Now we just have to make sure that when we record our guitar, we have our amp and our DI both armed and ready to go. We have our DI set up just the way we said, with our unbalanced cable going to the input. We have an unbalanced cable coming out of the through into the front of the amp, and we have our XLR going from the low Z output to the recorder. Set your gains so they're not clipping, and let's check some chugs. It's a good check, and some open chords are good. All right, here is our straight DI. And here is just the amp. You're going to want to track with the amp. So mute your DI when you're doing this. Now I always pull up a metronome on my phone, and I'll show you why. It allows me to line up these 2 tracks. Put it right next to the pickup, and I'll be able to line up those with each other, because the DI is going to be a little bit ahead of that amp track. So you want to make sure when you go back in, you're lining them up to your track correctly. Whichever one you move it to the other one. So let's go ahead and record our track here. I have my DI muted. We're ready to go. Whatever. Good enough for me. Let's take a look at what we got here. So we have these here, which we can see. We can line these up. Let's see if they're off from each other, huh? A little bit. So if we get in here, this is at 42176, and this is at 42177. That's barely off, but that's enough that if we reamped this, that it would be off. It's just good to know, and I'm always have that sort of stuff set up because, I mean, basically, it's good to know what the lag is in your system. You know, to really kind of know what you're up against. Let's take a listen to just the DI. Unarm these here. Cool. Let's listen to our amp track. Okay, I mean, these sound good. Now what we're going to want to do is take our reamp box, which is here, and we're going to take the output of this, we're going to run it into the front of the amp. So just take the through out of that DI. That'll be the output for this. And let's turn the amp on. See if we're getting a bunch of noise out of it. We have to arm our track here. Nah, sounds really quiet. That's good. So what we're going to do, mute this amp track so we can hear what's going on here. And we're going to set, because I have the reamp box on the back of my Focusrite. I have it plugged into output 3. So I'm going to put this to output 3. Okay. Now it's going to go out of output 3 and it's going to go into the reamp box. It's going to go back out and go into the front of the amp, and it's going to make noise. Let's see what that sounds like. Okay, let's say that you didn't like that EQ, or you wanted more gain on it, which I can tell that I kind of do right away. So let's do it again, and we can mess around with the EQ. Cool. Let's finalize that. We'll say that that's the one we're going to keep, even though it's got too much gain. I could probably move the microphone around and use another microphone, do a bunch of stuff to that. But this is just so you know how to get it back into your DAW. So let's go ahead and amp it. There you go, man. Now you're ready to drop this back in your mix if you liked the way, you know, your thing sounded. So there you go. That's how you reamp a guitar. Let me know what you thought about this video in the comments, if I missed anything, or if there's something else in this video that you think should have been in here that I just didn't cover. I'd love to make some more videos that you guys want to see. And like I said, these two boxes, $200, and about, I think, probably $30, $40 in cables if you had no cables. $250, you could set yourself up with some reamping if you already have a DAW and a, you know, interface. So really cool, man. I'll see you guys later.